The metal walls of the prison cell hummed with electric energy. Inside the small room, Queen Kiravel sat on a simple metal chair. Her hands were locked in special chains that stopped her powers from working. The once mighty ruler of the Veltar Empire now looked small and broken. Captain Minho Park walked into the room with two other humans. Dr. Hana Kim carried a tablet with test results. Colonel Wu Jin Lee kept his hand on his weapon. They had fought the Veltar Empire for 10 long years. Now their enemy sat in front of them, defeated. The queen looked up at them with large golden eyes. Her blue skin had lost its bright glow. The beautiful armor she once wore was cracked and dirty. For 200 years, she had ruled over dozens of worlds. Billions of people had feared her name. Now she was just a prisoner. "You humans won," she said in a quiet voice. "I never thought anyone could defeat my empire." Minho crossed his arms. "Your empire enslaved innocent people. You destroyed entire planets. Why should we listen to anything you say?" The queen's eyes filled with something that looked like tears. "Because I can give you something amazing. Something that will make your people the strongest in the galaxy." Dr. Kim stepped forward. She had studied alien biology for 15 years. "What are you talking about?" "My powers," the queen said. "I can transfer all of my abilities to your people. Telepathy, energy control, matter shaping, rapid healing. All of it can be yours." Colonel Lee laughed. "You think we're stupid? This is obviously a trap," but the queen shook her head. "No trap, I'm begging you, I don't want to die. I'll give you everything I have. Just let me live." Minho had never seen an alien beg before. The Veltar were known for their pride. They would rather die than show weakness. Yet here was their queen, offering her most precious possessions just to survive. Dr. Kim scanned the queen with her medical equipment. The readings made her eyes grow wide. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns. Her cellular structure is unlike anything we've seen." "What does that mean?" Minho asked. "It means she might actually be telling the truth. These powers could be transferable through some kind of biological process." The queen nodded quickly. "Yes. My people discovered this ability long ago. We can share our gifts with others. I can make your soldiers as strong as gods." Minho thought about the war they had just won. Humanity had barely survived. They lost millions of people fighting the Veltar. Earth's colonies were in ruins. If they had to fight another alien empire, they might not be so lucky next time. "How do we know you won't just take control of us?" Colonel Lee asked. "The process requires trust," the queen explained. "I cannot force it on unwilling subjects. You would have to choose to accept my gifts." Dr. Kim ran more tests. Her equipment showed incredible energy levels inside the queen's body. These weren't normal biological functions. This was something far beyond human science. "Captain," Dr. Kim whispered, "if this is real, we're talking about abilities that could change everything. Imagine soldiers who can heal instantly, scientists who can reshape matter with their thoughts, explorers who can communicate across space without technology." Minho stared at the queen. 3 days ago, she had been commanding massive battleships. Her troops had fought to the death rather than surrender. Now she sat in chains, offering her most sacred powers to the enemy. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you give us everything?" The queen's voice became even quieter. "Because there are worse things than humans in this galaxy. My empire wasn't built for conquest. It was built for survival. There is something coming, something that eats entire star systems. When it arrives, everyone will need to be strong." Colonel Lee frowned. "You're lying. Our scouts haven't detected any threats." "Your scouts cannot see what moves between dimensions," the queen said. "I have watched entire civilizations vanish overnight. The Veltar grew strong by absorbing the abilities of other species. Not because we wanted to rule, but because we needed to survive what's coming." Dr. Kim's hands shook as she read her scanner. "Captain, I'm detecting microscopic organisms in her bloodstream. They seem to carry genetic information from multiple species." "What does that mean?" Minho asked. It means her powers might come from other alien races. She's like a living library of abilities from across the galaxy. The Queen nodded. Every world we conquered, every species we defeated, we preserved their gifts within ourselves. We became strong so that something would survive the coming darkness. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. If the Queen was telling the truth, then humanity had just inherited a galaxy full of enemies. Other empires would want to take Earth, now that the Veltar were gone. I need proof, Minho said. Show us these powers work. The Queen looked at her chains. I cannot while wearing these restraints. Not happening, Colonel Lee said immediately. But Dr. Kim had an idea. What if we tested just a small sample? A tiny transfer that couldn't hurt anyone? The Queen's eyes lit up with hope. Yes, I could give one of you a minor healing ability, just enough to prove the process works. Minho thought carefully. The war had left humanity weak and scattered. Earth needed every advantage it could get, but trusting an alien who had killed millions of humans seemed impossible. I'll need to discuss this with my superiors, Minho said finally. Please, the Queen begged. I don't want to die. I can make your people strong enough to face anything. Just give me a chance to prove it. As they left the cell, Dr. Kim grabbed Minho's arm. Captain, if she's telling the truth about this coming threat, we might need her help. Colonel Lee disagreed. She's playing us. This is exactly what a desperate enemy would say. Minho looked back at the cell. Through the small window, he could see the Queen sitting alone, staring at the floor. For the first time since the war began, he felt confused about what to do next. The most powerful being in the known galaxy was begging humans for mercy. She offered gifts that could make humanity unstoppable. But accepting help from their greatest enemy felt wrong. Yet if she was right about the coming darkness, refusing her offer might doom everyone. The choice would change humanity's future forever. Admiral Jae-sung Choi sat at the head of the long metal table. Around him, Earth's top military leaders and scientists argued loudly. 3 days had passed since Queen Kiravel made her offer, and no one could agree on what to do. We cannot trust her, Lieutenant So Young-han said, hitting the table with her fist. I was on Europa Colony when the Veltar attacked. I watched them kill children with those same powers she wants to give us. Captain Minho Park nodded. I understand your anger, Lieutenant, but we have to think about Earth's future. If there really is a bigger threat coming, we need every advantage we can get. Dr. Hana Kim stood up and activated a holographic display. Strange symbols and numbers filled the air above the table. I've been studying the Queen's biology for 3 days. Her cellular structure contains genetic information from at least 30 different alien species. What does that mean in simple terms? Admiral Choi asked. It means she wasn't lying about absorbing other species' abilities. Every power she has came from somewhere else. Telepathy from the Mindari, energy projection from the Solari, matter, manipulation from the Shapers. Chief Engineer Dong Wu-shin looked up from his tablet. I've been examining Veltar technology. Their ships, weapons, even their cities are all built using stolen knowledge. They're like cosmic thieves who take the best from everyone they conquer. Colonel Wu Jin-Lee frowned. That makes it worse, not better. If we take her powers, we become thieves too. But Dr. Eugene Kang, the ship's physicist, disagreed. Those species are already dead. The knowledge exists. We can either use it to protect ourselves or let it disappear forever. Admiral Choi rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for 60 hours straight, trying to make this decision. What about the transfer process itself? Is it safe? Dr. Kim's expression grew worried. That's where things get complicated. The process isn't just biological, it's parasitic. The Queen doesn't just have these powers. She's literally carrying pieces of dead civilizations inside her body. The room fell silent. Behavioral analyst Tae-min Lim spoke up. You mean we would be carrying dead aliens inside us? In a sense, yes. Each power comes with genetic memories and instincts from the original species. Taking her abilities means taking parts of their consciousness too. Lieutenant Han stood up quickly. See? I told you this was wrong. we'd be letting alien minds into our heads. But Master Sergeant Bo Raseo, who had been quiet until now, raised her hand. With respect, Lieutenant, we're already at war with alien minds. If this gives us the strength to win, maybe it's worth the risk. Admiral Choi looked around the table. Half his officers wanted to accept the Queen's offer. The other half wanted to execute her immediately. Earth needed unity, not division. What about her claims of a coming threat? He asked. Dr. Kang activated another display. This one showed images from deep space telescopes. We've detected some unusual energy signatures moving toward our galaxy. The patterns don't match any known natural phenomena. Could be anything, Colonel Lee said. Solar storms, cosmic debris, equipment malfunction. Or it could be exactly what she described, Dr. Kim added. Something that consumes entire star systems. Chief Engineer Shin looked up from his calculations. If the Queen is right, this threat could arrive in anywhere from 5 to 50 years. We need to be ready. The debate continued for hours. Some officers argued that humanity should face whatever came with their own strength. Others insisted that refusing alien help was just pride that could get everyone killed. Then Communications Officer Nari Choi entered the room with urgent news. Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from 3 different star systems. All of them report the same thing. Entire planets are going dark one by one. The room erupted in worried voices. Admiral Choi demanded silence. Show us the signals. The holographic display changed to show a map of nearby space. 3 star systems were highlighted in red. The signals started 2 days ago, Officer Choi explained. First, the outer planets in each system stopped transmitting. Then the signals moved inward. Now all 3 systems are completely silent. Dr. Kang studied the data. The pattern is consistent, with something moving through space, systematically destroying everything in its path. How far away are these systems? Admiral Choi asked. The nearest is 47 light-years from Earth. Lieutenant Han's face went pale. That's exactly what the Queen described. The room fell quiet again. Everyone stared at the red markers on the display. Whatever was destroying those worlds might be heading toward Earth next. We need more information, Admiral Choi decided. Bring the Queen to the briefing room. I want to hear exactly what she knows about this threat. 20 minutes later, Queen Kiravel sat at the same table where Earth's leaders had been debating her fate. Her chains had been modified to let her use a small amount of power, just enough to access her memories clearly. The Devourers, she said simply. That is what we called them. They exist between dimensions, feeding on the life energy of entire worlds. How do you know so much about them? Admiral Choi asked. Because my people fought them once before 300 years ago. We lost. My homeworld was consumed. Only a few of us escaped. Dr. Kim leaned forward. So the Veltar Empire wasn't built for conquest? No, the Queen replied sadly. We built our empire to gather strength. Every species we absorbed made us more powerful. We hoped that if the Devourers returned, we would be ready. But you enslaved billions of innocent people, Lieutenant Han accused. The Queen's golden eyes filled with regret. Yes, we believed. The ends justified the means. We were wrong, but we were also desperate. When you face extinction, morality becomes a luxury. Chief Engineer Shin studied the Queen carefully. If these Devourers are so dangerous, why are you still alive? Why didn't they consume you too? Because I learned to hide between dimensions, just as they do. But hiding is not living. For 3 centuries, I have watched them destroy everything beautiful in the galaxy. I thought if I could make the Veltar strong enough, we could fight back. Instead, you made enemies of everyone, Admiral Choi observed. Yes, the Queen admitted. And now humanity is the only species strong enough to stand against the darkness. That is why I offer you everything. Not because I want to rule you, but because I want something to survive. The officers exchanged glances. The Queen's story explained many things that had puzzled them about the Veltar. Their ruthless efficiency, their desperate expansion, their refusal to negotiate. If we accept your powers, Admiral Choi asked. What guarantee do we have that you won't control us? None, the Queen said honestly. You would have to trust me, just as I must trust you not to kill me. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. As the officers filed out, each carried the weight of an impossible decision. Accept power from their greatest enemy, or face cosmic annihilation with only human strength. Outside the briefing room, Dr. Kim caught Captain Park's arm. Minho, I think she's telling the truth about everything. That's what scares me, he replied, looking back at the Queen through the doorway. If she's right, we might not have a choice. Captain Minho Park walked alone through the ship's corridors. It was late and most of the crew were sleeping. He couldn't sleep. The decision about Queen Kiravel weighed heavily on his mind. Tomorrow, Admiral Choi would announce Earth's choice. Hibahishiu found himself standing outside the Queen's cell again. Through the small window he could see her sitting quietly, staring at the wall. She looked so different from the terrifying enemy they had fought for 10 years. You cannot sleep either? The Queen's voice came through the intercom. Minho pressed the communication button. How did you know I was here? I can sense living minds nearby, even with these chains. Your thoughts are very loud, Captain Park. You are troubled. Against his better judgment, Minho opened the cell door and stepped inside. The Queen remained seated, making no threatening moves. Tell me about your homeworld, he said. Before the Devourers came, the Queen's golden eyes grew distant. It was beautiful. We were artists and healers then, not warriors. Our cities floated in the clouds of our gas giant. We painted with living light and sang songs that could heal broken hearts. What changed you? Survival changed us. When the Devourers came, our art and healing could not save anyone. We watched billions die in hours. Those of us who escaped made a promise. Never again would we be helpless. Minho sat down across from her. So you became the thing you feared. Yes, she admitted. We told ourselves it was necessary. We convinced ourselves that enslaving others was better than letting everyone die. But we were wrong. We became monsters to fight monsters. And now you want to give us the same choice. The Queen leaned forward slightly. No, Captain, I want to give you a better choice. Learn from our mistakes. Take the power, but keep your humanity. Use strength to protect, not to conquer. Down in the medical bay, Dr. Hana Kim worked late into the night. She had discovered something disturbing about the Queen's cellular structure. The absorbed genetic material wasn't just passive information. It was active. The Queen carried living fragments of 30 different species inside her body. Her assistant, Dr. Bae-sun Kim, looked up from his microscope. Doctor, these organisms are trying to communicate with each other. It's like there's a whole ecosystem inside her blood. That explains her mental stability issues, Dr. Kim realized. She's not just one consciousness. She's 30 different minds trying to exist in the same body. Meanwhile, in the ship's security center, Master Sergeant Bora Seo reviewed surveillance footage. Several crew members who had been near the Queen's cell were acting strangely. They seemed more aggressive during training exercises. Some had reported vivid dreams about alien worlds. Private Jun-Ho Yu entered the security office, looking pale and sick. Sergeant, I need to report something. Ever since I stood guard outside the Queen's cell yesterday, I've been hearing voices. SEO immediately pulled up Yu's medical records. His brain scans from this morning showed unusual activity. Patterns. What kind of voices, Private? They're not human voices. They speak in languages I don't understand, but somehow I know what they mean. They're telling me the Queen isn't our enemy. They say she's trying to save us. SEO felt a chill run down her spine. She called Dr. Kim immediately. In the physics lab, Dr. Eugene Kang studied the deep space energy readings again. The approaching threat was moving faster than they had calculated. What they thought would take decades might only take years. Her colleague, Taemin Lim, looked worried. Doctor, I've been analyzing the psychological profiles of species that encountered these devourers. The few survivors all show signs of extreme trauma. Whatever these things do, it's worse than death. How could anything be worse than death? Dr. Kang asked. According to the records, the devourers don't just kill. They consume consciousness itself. The victims remain aware even as their life force is drained. They experience centuries of agony in moments. Dr. Kang stared at the data. If that was true, then death would be a mercy compared to what was coming. Back in the Queen's cell, Minho continued their conversation. If your people had found another way to gain strength, would you have taken it? Without hesitation, the Queen replied. But we had no choice. We were dying species fleeing from extinction. You humans have time to choose wisely. Do we? Those star systems that went dark? How long before the devourers reach Earth? The Queen closed her eyes, accessing memories from the absorbed species. Based on their previous patterns, perhaps 5 years, maybe less. 5 years. Minho felt his heart race. Earth's military was still rebuilding from the war with the Veltar. Their colonies were in ruins. Billions of humans were still recovering from decades of conflict. Could humanity even survive your power transfer process? He asked. Most would. But some minds are too rigid to accept foreign consciousness. They would break. How many? The Queen hesitated. Perhaps 1 in 10 would not survive intact, but 9 in 10 would become more than they ever dreamed possible. Minho stood up abruptly. You're asking us to sacrifice millions of people for power. I am asking you to sacrifice some to save all. It is the same choice my people faced. And look how that turned out for you. The Queen's expression grew sad. Yes, look how it turned out. We gained the power to fight gods, but we lost our souls. That is why I beg you to be better than we were. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Minho ran to the nearest communication panel. Captain DeBridge, what's happening? Sir, we have a medical emergency in the crew quarters. Several personnel have collapsed simultaneously. Minho's blood went cold. Which personnel? All the ones who have been near the Queen's cell in the past 3 days, sir. The Queen stood up, her chains rattling. Captain, it has begun. The transfer process starts automatically when beings are in close proximity to a Veltar for extended periods. Your people are beginning to change. Minho stared at her in horror. You said the process required willing subjects. It does for full transfer, but proximity exposure creates minor changes. Your crew members are developing basic telepathic abilities. Their minds are opening to new possibilities. You've been infecting my crew, not infecting, awakening. The changes will fade if I am removed from the ship. But Captain, your people need to see what they could become. Medical teams rushed through the corridors as affected crew members were brought to the infirmary. Dr. Kim worked frantically to understand what was happening to them. Private Yu, despite his earlier symptoms, was among the first to recover. He sat up in his medical bed, his eyes glowing faintly golden. Doctor, he said in a voice that sounded different. I can see into your mind. You're scared, but you're also amazed. The Queen's gift isn't a curse. It's evolution. Dr. Kim stepped back. Private, how do you feel? I feel and more. I can sense every living thing on this ship. I can feel their emotions, their fears, their hopes. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Other affected crew members began waking up with similar abilities. Some could move small objects with their thoughts. Others could heal minor cuts just by touching them. But not everyone was so fortunate. 2 crew members remained unconscious, their brain activity chaotic and unpredictable. Their minds couldn't handle the foreign consciousness trying to integrate with their thoughts. In the briefing room, Admiral Choi gathered his senior staff for an emergency meeting. The situation had changed dramatically. The Queen's powers weren't just an offer anymore. They were already affecting his crew. Recommendations? He asked grimly. Colonel Lee spoke first. We should evacuate the ship and destroy it along with the Queen. This contamination could spread to all of humanity. But Dr. Kim disagreed. Admiral, the affected crew members aren't showing signs of being controlled. They're still themselves, just enhanced. And they're reporting detailed information about the approaching threat that matches all our scientific data. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying maybe this isn't contamination, maybe it's preparation. The Queen might be right about everything. Communications Officer Nari Choi sat at her station, monitoring deep space transmissions. It was 3 in the morning, and the ship was quiet. Most of the crew were sleeping off the effects of their unexpected power awakening. The affected personnel were stable now, showing remarkable new abilities but remaining fully human in their thoughts and emotions. Nari was scanning routine traffic when she noticed something strange. Her equipment was picking up quantum-encrypted signals from within their own ship. That was impossible. Only the Queen had quantum communication technology, and her cell was completely isolated. She traced the signal source and felt her blood freeze. The transmissions were coming from the Queen's cell, but they weren't random. They were following a specific pattern, one she recognized from intercepted Veltar military communications during the war. Nari immediately called Security Chief Bora Seo. "Sergeant, I need you to see this right away." 10 minutes later, Seo arrived at the communications station. Nari showed her the signal patterns on her screen. "The Queen has been sending messages," Nari explained. "For the past 3 days, every few hours, she's been transmitting to coordinates throughout the galaxy." "That's impossible," Seo replied. "Her cell blocks all forms of communication." "Not quantum communication. It works on principles we don't fully understand. The signals pass through any barrier." SEO studied the data. The transmission patterns were definitely Veltar military codes. "Can you decode what she's saying?" "I've been working on it. The messages are short, but I think I have the basic structure. She's been reporting our ship's location, crew numbers, military capabilities, and..." Nari paused, looking worried. "And what?" "And detailed psychological profiles of key personnel. She's been studying our reactions to her offer and reporting everything to someone out there." Seo grabbed her weapon and called for backup immediately. "Security team to the Queen's cell, code red situation." Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Dr. Hana Kim was conducting final tests on the affected crew members. Private Junho Yu had recovered completely and was showing remarkable healing abilities. His minor training injuries from yesterday had disappeared overnight. "How do you feel, Private?" Dr. Kim asked. "Better than ever, Doctor. But there's something strange. I keep getting flashes of memories that aren't mine. Images of alien worlds, knowledge of technologies I've never seen." Dr. Kim frowned. "What kind of knowledge?" "Weapon designs, ship construction techniques, battle strategies. It's like someone is downloading information directly into my brain." Before Dr. Kim could respond, her assistant, Dr. Bae-sun Kim, burst into the room. "Doctor, you need to see this immediately. I've been analyzing the cellular changes in our affected personnel." He led her to his laboratory where microscopic images filled the screen. "The genetic modifications aren't random. They're following a specific pattern, almost like they're building something inside each person." "Building what?" I think they're creating receivers. The affected crew members aren't just gaining powers. They're being prepared to receive direct mental commands from an external source." Dr. Kim felt sick. "You mean the Queen can control them?" "Potentially, yes, but it gets worse. The modifications are designed to be transmissible. Anyone who spends time near the affected personnel will begin changing too. The entire ship could be converted within days." In the Queen's cell, Security Chief Seo confronted Queen Kiravel with 4 armed guards. The alien ruler sat calmly, showing no surprise at their arrival. "You've been communicating with Veltar forces," Seo accused. "We have proof." The Queen smiled, and suddenly she looked less like a desperate prisoner and more like the terrifying enemy they remembered from the war. "Of course I have," she replied, her voice no longer pleading or weak. "Did you really think I would allow myself to be truly captured by humans? Your ship was destroyed, your empire fell, we saw it happen. You saw what I wanted you to see. The defeat of the Veltar Empire was staged, Sergeant Seo. A carefully planned performance to place me exactly where I needed to be." Seo raised her weapon, but the Queen continued talking. "Think about it logically. How did your forces suddenly become so effective against us? How did you discover our weaknesses so easily? How did you manage to capture me when I had successfully escaped every trap for 2 centuries? The pieces began falling into place in Seo's mind. The final battles had seemed too easy. The Veltar forces had made strategic mistakes they would never normally make. You let us win, she realized. I orchestrated your victory, the Queen corrected. I needed to be captured by humanity at your moment of greatest triumph, when your guard was lowest and your hope was highest. Why? The Queen stood up, and her chains began glowing. Because humans are the perfect species for my purposes. You're individually weak but collectively strong. You're emotional but adaptable. Most importantly, you're desperate enough to accept help from anyone. The chains suddenly shattered, falling to the floor like broken glass. The Queen's skin began glowing with its former brilliance. Her powers had never been suppressed. She had simply been hiding them. The power transfer process I described is real, she continued. But I failed to mention one crucial detail. The enhanced humans don't just receive abilities, they receive absolute loyalty to me. Every person who accepts my gifts becomes part of my consciousness. SEO tried to fire her weapon, but found she couldn't move. The Queen's telepathic powers held her frozen. Your affected crew members are already partially under my control. They don't realize it yet because I'm allowing them to think freely. But when I choose to activate their loyalty programming, they will obey my every command without question. Through the ship's communication system, the Queen's voice reached every corner of the vessel. Attention crew of the human ship Determination. Your captain and admiral have been considering my generous offer. Allow me to make the choice easier for them. In the medical bay, Private Yu suddenly stood up straight. His eyes glowed bright golden, and when he spoke, his voice carried the Queen's accent. Dr. Kim, he said in a tone that was no longer his own, you will now assist me in preparing the ship for transition to Veltar control. Dr. Kim backed away in horror. Junho, fight this. You're human. I am human, Yu replied, but his movements were mechanical, controlled. But I serve a higher purpose now. The Queen has shown me the truth. Humanity needs guidance to survive what's coming. Throughout the ship, other affected crew members began acting strangely. They moved with coordinated purpose, accessing computer systems and securing key areas. Their human personalities were still present, but they were no longer in control of their actions. In the briefing room, Admiral Choi received reports of the situation unfolding throughout his ship. Nearly 30% of his crew were now under the Queen's influence, and the number was growing as the enhancement process spread to others. Captain Minho Park arrived with terrible news. Admiral, we've intercepted the Queen's transmissions. She's been in contact with hidden Veltar fleets throughout the galaxy. They're not defeated. They're regrouping. How many ships? Choi asked grimly. Unknown, but the signal responses suggest hundreds, possibly thousands. The entire war was a deception to get the Queen into our custody. Colonel Woojin Lee, who had been quiet during recent meetings, suddenly spoke up. Admiral, perhaps we should consider that the Queen's plan might be for the best. Humanity clearly cannot survive without guidance. Choi stared at Lee in shock. The Colonel's eyes had developed a faint golden tint. How long have you been affected, Colonel? Since the second day, Lee replied calmly. The Queen's influence grows stronger with time. Soon, all of us will understand the wisdom of her leadership. Dr. Yujin Kang, who had been analyzing the deep space threats, looked up from her datapad with golden-tinted eyes. Admiral, the approaching devourer forces are real, but the Queen has shown us that submission to her rule is the only way humanity can survive. We should be grateful for this opportunity. Choi realized with growing horror that his senior staff were being converted one by one. The Queen's plan was working perfectly. In a few more days, the entire command structure would be under alien control. Computer, seal the briefing room, he ordered. Authorization Choi Alpha 7. But the computer replied in a voice that sounded like Private Yu. I'm sorry, Admiral. That authorization is no longer recognized. Please report to the Queen's location for processing. Admiral Choi drew his sidearm and looked around the room. Half his officers now had golden eyes and were staring at him with expressions of patient expectation. "The Queen offers you a choice, Admiral," Colonel Lee said gently. "Accept her gifts willingly and retain some independence, or resist and be converted by force." Through the ship's speakers, Queen Kiravel's voice rang out with triumphant authority. "Humans of Earth, your leaders are about to make a decision that will determine your species' future. I offer evolution, protection, and purpose. In return, I ask only for your loyalty and obedience. The time for pretense is over. Surrender now, and your transition to a higher form of existence will be gentle." Choi looked at his remaining unaffected officers. There were only 5 of them left in a room of 20. The Queen's infection was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. The trap had been perfect. Humanity's greatest enemy had convinced. Admiral Jae-sung Choi stood in the sealed briefing room with the few officers who remained unaffected. The Queen's voice echoed through the ship's speakers, commanding her newly converted servants to secure all critical systems. Golden-eyed crew members moved through the corridors with mechanical precision, no longer thinking for themselves. "We have maybe an hour before they break through these doors," said Chief Engineer Dongwoo Shin, one of the 5 unaffected officers remaining. "The Queen's servants are accessing our security systems." Captain Minho Park checked his weapon. "What's our tactical situation?" "Bad," replied Master Sergeant Bora Seo. 70% of the crew are under her control. They have access to the armory, the bridge, and engineering. We're trapped in here with no way to fight back." Dr. Hana Kim looked up from her medical scanner. "It's worse than that. The conversion process is accelerating. Anyone who spends more than a few minutes near the affected personnel starts changing too. We're fighting a virus that spreads through proximity." Admiral Choi studied the faces of his remaining officers. These 5 people represented humanity's last hope of stopping Queen Kiravel's plan. But what could they do against an enemy who controlled their own ship? "Doctor, is there any way to reverse the conversion process?" he asked. "I don't know. The Queen's telepathic network seems to override individual consciousness. But there might be a way to disrupt it." Communications Officer Nari Choi, the Admiral's daughter, looked up from her portable equipment. "I've been analyzing the Queen's quantum transmissions. They follow a specific frequency pattern. If we could overload that frequency with random signals, it might break her connection to the converted crew. Can you do it?" Admiral Choi asked. "Not from here. I'd need access to the main communication array. But that's on the bridge, which is completely under the Queen's control." "Chief," Engineer Shin suddenly smiled. "Wait, there might be another way. The ship's quantum communication system is connected to every major system through the central computer core. If we could access the core directly..." "The core is in the most secure part of the ship," Sergeant Co pointed out. "We'd have to fight through dozens of converted crew members to reach it." "Not if we go through the maintenance tunnels," Shin replied. "I designed the ventilation system myself. There are passages the Queen's servants won't know about." Captain Park nodded. "It's our only chance. But what happens when we reach the core? How do we stop the Queen?" Dr. Kim had been thinking about this problem. The Queen's power comes from the absorbed consciousness of other species. Each alien mind she carries is like a separate program running in her brain. If we could overload her with too much information... "You mean flood her telepathic network?" "With data?" Admiral Choi asked. "Not just data. Human consciousness itself. The Queen expects to control ordered, logical thoughts. But human minds are chaotic, creative, unpredictable. If we could broadcast pure human emotion and creativity into her network, it might overwhelm her processing ability." Nari understood immediately. "We turn the ship's communication system into a transmitter for human consciousness instead of the Queen's commands." "But how do we broadcast something like that?" Sergeant Co asked. Dr. Kim's eyes lit up with inspiration. "Music, art, poetry, love, humor, dreams. Everything that makes humans unique. We flood her network with the most human experiences we can think of." The plan was desperate and probably impossible, but it was their only hope. Chief Engineer Shin led them through narrow maintenance tunnels while Queen Kiravel's voice echoed through the ship, commanding her servants to prepare for the final phase of conversion. Soon, all of humanity will join the Veltar Empire, the Queen announced. You will become part of something greater than yourselves. Your primitive emotions will be replaced with perfect logical purpose. As they crawled through the dark tunnels, Captain Park whispered to Dr. Kim, "Do you really think this will work?" The Queen has spent centuries absorbing logical, ordered species. She's never encountered anything like human creativity and chaos. It might be the one thing she can't control. They reached the computer core without being detected. The massive quantum processors hummed with energy, managing every system on the ship. Chief Engineer Shin quickly began modifying the communication array, while Nari prepared to broadcast their signal. "I need 5 minutes to reroute the quantum transmitters," Shin said. Outside the core chamber, they could hear footsteps. The converted crew members were searching for them. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now," Sergeant Seo said, checking her weapon. Dr. Kim activated her portable medical scanner and connected it to the communication system. "I'm uploading everything I can think of that represents human consciousness. Personal memories, emotional responses, creative thoughts." That's not enough, Admiral Choi realized. We need more human minds contributing to the signal. Captain Park had an idea. The unaffected crew members throughout the ship. If we can reach them through the internal communication system, they can add their thoughts to the broadcast. Nari's fingers flew over her equipment. "I'm opening channels to every unaffected person on the ship. Anyone who can hear this, start thinking about what makes you human." Throughout the ship, the few remaining unconverted crew members heard the message. They began focusing on their most human memories and emotions, broadcasting them through the ship's communication system. Private Jun-Ho Yu, still under the Queen's control, suddenly stopped walking. His golden eyes flickered as conflicting signals reached his mind. The Queen's ordered commands were being mixed with chaotic human thoughts and feelings. In her cell, Queen Kiravel felt the first disruption in her telepathic network. Strange. Signals were flooding her consciousness. Images of human families, memories of laughter, dreams of hope and love. The alien minds she had absorbed couldn't process these illogical emotional concepts. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice showing confusion for the first time. The signal grew stronger as more human consciousness joined the broadcast. The Queen's perfect network of logical control began fracturing under the assault of pure human creativity and emotion. Chief Engineer Shin completed his modifications. "It's working. The Queen's telepathic frequency is being overwhelmed by random human thought patterns." But their victory was short-lived. The converted crew members had found their location and were breaking through the chamber doors. "Hold them off," Admiral Choi ordered. The battle was fierce but brief. Sergeant Seo and Captain Park fought desperately against their own crew members, trying not to seriously hurt people who were still human underneath the Queen's control. The signal continued broadcasting. Something unexpected happened. The converted crew members began showing signs of confusion. Their golden eyes flickered between alien control and human consciousness. Private Yu shook his head violently, fighting an internal battle between two different types of consciousness. I remember who I am," he said in his own voice. "The Queen's commands are getting weaker." Throughout the ship, other converted crew members began breaking free of the telepathic control. The chaotic nature of human thought was proving impossible for the Queen to maintain control over. In her cell, Queen Kiravel was experiencing something she had never felt before: complete mental chaos. The ordered minds of 30 different alien species in her consciousness were being overwhelmed by the beautiful, unpredictable complexity of human emotion. "Stop this," she screamed, but her telepathic commands were lost in the flood of human creativity. Dr. Kim made a crucial discovery. The Queen's powers aren't disappearing, they're being redistributed. The absorbed alien consciousness is separating from her and dissipating into space. "What does that mean?" Admiral Choi asked. "It means she's losing the stolen abilities that made her so powerful. They're returning to the cosmic void where they belong." The Queen's screams of rage and confusion echoed through the ship as centuries of stolen power left her body. The alien minds she had enslaved were finally being set free, unable to coexist with the chaotic beauty of human consciousness. Captain Park realized what was happening. She built her empire on controlling ordered, logical species. But humans are too chaotic, too creative, too unpredictable to be controlled for long. The battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. The converted crew members collapsed, their minds finally free of alien influence. The Queen's telepathic network had been completely destroyed by the one thing she couldn't understand or control: genuine human emotion and creativity. In her cell, Queen Kiravel sat powerless and defeated. Without the stolen abilities of other species, she was just another alien prisoner. Her grand plan had failed because she underestimated the one thing that made humans truly unique. "How?" she whispered to Captain Park when he came to check on her. "How did you resist powers that conquered entire galaxies?" "Because you tried to control something that can't be controlled," Park replied. "Human creativity, love, humor, and hope aren't weaknesses. They're our greatest strengths. You spent so long absorbing logical species that you forgot chaos can be more powerful than order." Admiral Choi made the final decision about the Queen's fate. She would be held as a prisoner and war criminal, not as a source of power. Humanity would face the approaching cosmic threat with their own strength, ingenuity, and unity.